Hello and welcome to Disability in Fiction. This is our fortnightly workshop, one of two. Next week is our Disability in Screenwriting workshop, and essentially the two workshops are very much the same in the way that we just look at disability in the media and the way that it's presented. I'm going to go through my usual PowerPoint, hopefully. And yeah, just with some guidelines and things like that, and a bit of what we're about. Disability is amongst the most misrepresented and misunderstood minorities in the media, and so we want to help change that. Just before we officially started, we were talking about it, and how iffy it can be. I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, anyway, I went on a tangent. People of any age, gender, religion, race, or socioeconomic background can be disabled, and you don't see that reflected in the media, and that's what we want to help change here on WordCamp and on ScriptCamp, our sister server. We want to have more conversations around disability and, yeah, start to change the industry in that way. As much as we can. I mean, it starts small, and that's what we're doing. But hopefully, these conversations will start changing the way that the media is and represents those with disabilities. So yeah, that's the idea of this workshop. Big goals, but there we go. Now, to make sure this is a safe place for everyone, we have a couple of guidelines and expectations that we ask everyone to bear in mind. We ask that everyone is respectful and we won't tolerate insults. As part of the nature of this workshop, questions are welcome. Add-on to that is questions can be quite sensitive to people. So don't feel the need to answer any questions that you're asked about your disability. If you're comfortable, go ahead, absolutely. And make sure that if you are asking questions, make sure you're asking them respectfully. This is an environment where we all want to learn and improve, and so that means that we are contributing to each other, not just taking feedback, but we're giving feedback as well. For the purposes of this workshop, there are 5 disabilities. Everyone only thinks of physical disabilities, but there's intellectual disabilities, sensory disabilities, hidden disabilities, and mental health. And they're all equally welcome here in the workshop. All are welcome. So yeah, this is one of 2 workshops. We welcome disabled and able-bodied people alike. If you're able-bodied, we want to specifically hear about scripts that include disabled characters, and if you are disabled in any way, you can share any projects you like. It sort of doubles up as a writers group for disabled people. And ultimately, we want to help you write better disabled characters. We meet every other week on WordCamp at the same time, 8 AM Pacific, 11 AM Eastern, and 4 PM British time. And then the other week is disability in screenwriting. Both workshops are fairly similar in what we talk about. Reviewing disabled characters in existing media, with disabled characters in your story, sharing disabled experiences, and sensitivity readings. So in just a second, I will open it up. Oh no, I've got a couple more slides I forgot about. We have a disability feedback channel in both servers, and this is for any members to post their work in if it contains a disabled character or is written by a disabled person. We will also be doing prompts, so at the end of a session, we will post something in the forum channel, and you will have 2 weeks to complete that prompt. Well, winners, as decided by me and or Willow, will receive 5 coins, and all other participants will receive 2 coins. It's limited to 5 pages. And finally, the most important part of this PowerPoint, our disclaimer. This is a safe space for us to talk about all aspects of disability, and that includes sensitive topics. And so we'll be possibly talking about sensitive, potentially triggering topics, including mental health, addiction, trauma, abuse. There were a couple others that I added to the other PowerPoint. But yeah, basically lots of sensitive topics. We may not, we may do. Take this as a warning. You're welcome to leave at any point without feeling the need to explain yourself. And, look after yourself, because your mental and emotional well-being always take priority over your attendance. And breathe, sure. Right, that is us through the PowerPoint. So let's open it up to anyone who has any... I need to press some button. Anyone who has any questions, or would like any guidance in any way with their script. Or their novel, rather. Yeah, hi, we can hear you.
I have a disability character in my story. The problem is, there's some really plot holes that I'm trying to think about it. There's the
Okay.
trauma, and there's also a weird part that I'm really like it, but I don't want to remove it. But then I'm like, how would I explain it? Kind of situation, which I don't know how to explain.
Yeah. This seems to be a recurring theme that we have on these workshops when we're talking about trauma.
It's there's a lot of layers going on in the character. I wish I could just show you the script, but I don't know like if I'm allowed to
uh,
because there's a lot of interesting layers. In the
yeah.
characters in my universe, there's this hierarchy. I mean, there's 3 beings basically. Well, actually, there's a lot of beings, but just the story that starts it off, there's just basically 3. There's
Sorry,
humans.
I'm going to interrupt
Hello?
you very, very quickly. I forgot to do something, so there's going to be a loud noise.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
There we go. That's not your fault at all. That is mine. I was meant to do it at the start and I forgot.
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
yeah, okay. Okay. My story has a lot of inner layers that builds up to it. And there's one of the scenes they're referring to the trauma, which in it doesn't make sense unless you read it because, like I said, there's hierarchy. There's humans and there's anthropomorphic animals, which basically separate into 2, prey and predator. And there's a scene where I guess I will simplify, but if you guys have the chance to read my story, it explains more detail than this horrible summary. Basically, this character on the outside, she looks like a wolf, but during the scene when a character splashed water on her face, it reveals that she's not a wolf, but a hyena. And the water kind of triggered her because it reminds her of her abusive parents, who, well, not really a parents, more like, adopted, and they
Can
use
I
her.
just clarify a couple of things first? I want to know a bit
Yeah.
more about the structure of your story first. So, is this a pilot, a series, or is this a feature, a movie?
I feel like this is more like a comic book / animated series.
Okay, so it's a series, okay. So when you're doing a series, you have what's called a pilot episode, which is the first episode, and it will be, what's the easiest way for me to explain this? There'll be 3 acts. The first act will be sort of the old life, how everything was before a major change. You'll have the second act, which is sort of the end of the old life. It's that transition, or the start of the transition. And then the third act will be the new life, what will happen after this major event that's taken place. So that's something that I would, really pause what you're working on and thinking about first before continuing. So we don't have that template image server. Willow asks, do you have a log line for this?
What's a log line?
So it is the plot of your story summarized into one sentence.
It's basically a story about Sebastian dealing with his trauma while also continuing his life in the 1940s, where World War II starts.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and get a template for you. Bear with me. So there's that command doesn't work in here.
And I feel like if you know the entire history of Seb, I feel like I'm gonna trigger everybody.
Yeah, so let's just be careful about that. Hang on, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna copy this for you.
Like I said, Seb's story in the books only, like the written books, is very dark.
Okay,
It's so dark.
Give me 1 minute. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna post this. So this is sort of a bit of a guide to writing a log line. And once you've written a log line, it will really help you figure out the structure of your script, or of your story. So there are a couple of questions that you'll want to ask and answer. Not necessarily now, because this will take a lot of time to think about. But some of those questions will include: what's your inciting incident? What is it that is pushing the story forwards? What's moving it along? My second question is: who's the protagonist? What are they like? What's their personality? What are they up against? What's their flaws maybe? What do they want? So what's their goal? What's in their way? So what's going to stop them from reaching their goal? And what happens if they fail? So we need some sort of stakes or some sort of ticking clock to keep the story moving. Because if there's anything boring in the story, people will switch off. They won't, continue to watch or read or whatever. So you have to have these questions answered before you can really write a story. And I made this mistake too. I started writing a story before I did all of this, and I'm definitely feeling it now. So yeah, I would recommend you look at the message in there. And take some time to think about all of these.
Oh, I see. Mine is more like a novel. It doesn't really write as a script yet. Mine is more like, basically the story is kind of like there's this thing where he's trying to find where, because it's all related to the incident that he did. And like I said,
but I think that it's the structure will still be the same or fairly similar at least. But it's a novel will be longer in page count and word count, but the whole structure is fairly similar. You still need to answer these questions in order to get the story down.
Okay.
Because every story will have these questions.
What's funny is that the protagonist just really wants to find the woman that they have a relationship. It's more like a psychological analysis of the character. He knows that what she done to him and take advantage of him, but he cannot let go because he enjoys it. He subconsciously enjoys it.
Okay, so what's the what is it
The
that the
incident,
protagonist wants?
the protagonist just basically he wants to be normal for once. He wants to move on for all the things that have happened to him, but the past keeps coming back, and he felt guilty about it. He
Okay,
wants to live normal, but his personal life, he gets in trouble because that's how it's work. Because he cannot get a better job because of how he was raised, and he's really a good person, but he's just like society made me treat that way.
hmm
You know, I
okay,
cannot get a good job because as a kid, my mother died, and I now work hard to get a job, and then all of a sudden, my mother died. She was eaten alive by a rat
okay.
people because she's a bunny. Blah blah blah. Now I have to work in a circus, bring my little brothers and sisters, work together. There's more to it, but I don't want to give. Well, I want to, but I'm afraid that might trigger some people.
All right, I think that's a good level of detail because at this point we're only looking at a very a basic overview. I don't think at this stage we're ready to get into all the nitty-gritty background details yet. It sounds like there's still more to figure out. So what's your inciting incident? What makes your character go on this journey that they're going to go on in the pilot?
Basically, he kind of went a little insane because here's the thing. He kind of have a relationship with a woman who is a witch slash magician, and they had kind of have a relationship. And despite all the physical, mental, what's abuse, he still sticks with her, and he's willing to abandon his family for it. Makes him realize he's guilty. However, what's funny, what's very tragic about this is that his sister told him that the witch used him for what, despite him being young. He says that I don't care anymore. If 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 that quote bond makes him feel happy, then so be it. I don't care if I've been used as a toy. I don't care. I
Okay,
like
so
that feeling as an escape to the pain I just suffer every day before I met him in the
okay, hang on,
circus.
hang on. Yeah, I uh, I would encourage you to look at the document at the end of the message that PDF sent, and try and work out a log line for this. So it has to be a short sentence that sort of summarizes the whole thing, the whole script. And once you have that, that will really help you to figure out your outline and the structure of your script. I will see if I can get a YouTube video that really helped me. Um, does anyone have any comments for? Sorry, I forgot your username for Nikki Pool.
It's really complicated, like I said.
Yeah. And if anyone has any comments.
I think you're trying too hard to make it complicated when you should really just try and strip it down to its most bare bones. What is the story? What is the character? What is their arc going to be? Everything else is, at the end of the day, it's window dressing.
I
Yeah,
see,
I
but
would
like,
agree.
but I understand where you're coming from, but this story resonates to me in a most realistic way because
I want to interrupt you there, just because Dan has a point, and this is something that I'm learning at the moment. And just 2 days ago, I suddenly realized, hang on, I'm making this really complicated, and I'm finding it really difficult to write because it's overcomplicated. I need to really narrow things down and really make things more concise and drop irrelevant storylines until I've got the first draft written. And if it needs it, I can add stuff back in. But what you want initially, at least, is the very basics. Because otherwise it's just too much for your head to remember and you start to get overwhelmed by it. This is what I found.
Okay.
What you need is a more simple, stripped down version where you are not just filling the audience's minds with backstory. We want to focus on the here and now, what's happening, and maybe a bit of why it's happening, but we don't want the history, we don't want the backstory, not too much of it. Because that just slows the story down and makes it boring, you know. There's just lots of reasons to not do that.
Also, I don't want to sound rude crass when I say it, but everybody who writes, every story they write is usually important to them or really speaks to them, or they wouldn't write it.
Okay.
Just get down to the bare bones of it all and build from there, because sounds like, have you written most of it? Because it sounds like you're
I read,
is.
I read most of it. Hello? Oh.
I'm here. Sorry.
Let me hear you.
I read most of it.
Okay. I'm gonna send you this
Basically-
YouTube video that really
Okay.
helped me recently. That's another
Okay.
thing that might help you to structure your story. This is for a screenplay, but I think it will help no matter what media you're writing.
Okay.
Is there anything else that anyone wanted to say? Give some help to Nikki Paul?
So I absolutely understand your problem of struggling to describe to us, and it's I understand like how complicated stories can get.
Oh, I didn't mean to be complicated. It's just that as I was developing the story, there's so much history that I'm aware of.
Right.
But the problem is, how would I simplify? If I simplify, then some of the elements will be removed.
One of the
Oh,
skills,
sorry.
one of the skills of writing is also figuring out how to communicate what you are writing with other people, and that is a very, very difficult thing. What details do you need to talk about? What details can you leave off? And that is absolutely a skill that has to be developed. And so figuring out, I guess we as the audience need to understand what the character's journey is. We need to know what their goal is, and like how they tend to want to need to go about it, what kind of obstacles are going to be in their way. So that's kind of why log lines exist. It's just a formulaic way to be able to communicate something that is extremely complicated and has a lot of backstory. So yeah, it is definitely a skill to be able to communicate your entire story, and I think that is, I think that's the part that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, I would like to learn. Like I said, I learn by physical, not in like I learned by like watching and reading. So like nobody teach me about this stuff. I wish people to teach me in English class because I was like, here's the thing. I studied until grade 7, and I moved to Thailand and came back here, and my drama with my parents and blah blah. And I still want to write because I want to make myself well known, but also, that's why I joined this group by searching a writing group on Google just to make people read and criticize and help me.
Just based on something that you said, it is very difficult to write a story that is so connected to your past. It is very difficult. It's not an easy task by any means. So I think sometimes it's good to not write. It's almost like you're writing a biography. Sometimes you don't want to do that. You want to write something that's kind of linked to you, but only kind of.
Well, it's not really connected, but I just felt like this person's story is tragic, and I wrote it, but I also mixed in historical references. It's basically a story about a person trying to get over his trauma by moving on, but also he's struggling with other things that's going on in his life. Because, like, I noticed that I can simplify to a certain extent. Right now, there's like 3 villains. The first arc,
Oh yeah, that's way too
basically,
many. I'll say that one straight away. You want one main antagonist and one main protagonist.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
but
it's already too complicated.
yeah, but I wrote it in like this person is sent to jail for now. Now this next
Yeah, it's still
character.
too complicated. It really needs to be stripped down, and you can leave the other antagonist until the next episode or the next comic or whatever it is.
Yeah, I wrote
Otherwise,
it.
it's just
I
too
wrote it
much.
in a very. I wrote it in a very well, not. I don't wrote it cheesy. I just wrote like the way I handle. Yes, the story is serious, but like it handles it like, okay, this character's gone away for a while, and now this character comes in, and now this character is now stuck in jail for now, you know. And now we focus on the backstory a little more. As for the past, I'm keeping it as vague, but I know what exactly happened. Hello?
Yeah, we heard everything. Yeah, like I say, it's still too complicated. It doesn't need to be so complex because it makes it more difficult for you, and it makes it more difficult for a reader. There's just no real reason to make it this complex.
Yeah, but do I
yeah.
really have to kill the villain though? Because I don't want to kill the
No, you don't
villain.
have to kill them. You can just you don't have to introduce them in this comic or this. You don't have to introduce them yet. You can wait till the next episode of the next comic.
Well, the first chapter, they know for a while, and they were like, I hire you to kill this human because this human basically, you know, sold my dad, and basically because of him, you lose your job. If you want to get money, you gotta kill this human child. And also, this human child happens to be this. This is the one where I used this character as a constructive criticism about the. Have you remembered that news about the escape from the cult, the family of cult? The one that in some country, some state, I forgot, in the United States, that that the dad has 17 wives or whatever, and they're all in one family. Oh, the Kingston family. That's my criticism. Hello?
So I'm really struggling to keep track of a story because we're going into so many other references. It's really getting me lost.
I use this human character as a kind of like a reference, but also kind of like as a political standpoint about like
Okay, can we let's simplify this. I'm going to keep saying this. We need to simplify it because you're losing me. It doesn't matter how much you
Oh.
explain it, I'm just getting lost in all of these references and all of these characters and all of this backstory. It's just too much for anyone to get their head around. So yeah, I don't think I can give you any other advice other than simplify it, just, strip it down, because it's confusing for readers, which you don't want, and it will eventually confuse you when you finish writing it and you go back to review it and stuff. It's just a mess right now. So yeah, I would say there's a lot that can be stripped back right now. So just almost go through it with a comb.
Oh, okay. Because it's just basically, the mafia versus, a political a cult. Who?
I have a question, Nikki,
Yes.
for you. What is your character's name? What is your main character's name? Let's start with that.
Sebastian Levine.
All right, so Sebastian. And what is he doing? What is his job, his hobby? What does he do?
He used to sell drugs for the mafia, but now he used to.
Stop right there. Right there. All right, so Sebastian is a drug dealer. Okay? That we can understand. Is he a current drug dealer or a past dealer that he's no longer dealing?
He's no longer dealing.
Okay, so he has ties to drug dealing and he has gotten out. Okay. That is what we can work with. That is how we can wrap our heads around it, and how we can understand the character, and now that can build a whole bunch of ideas. And
my battery. Hold on, let me open my computer. Oh wait, never mind. I think it's good for now. Hold on. Hello, you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here. So
okay.
Simplifying it in that way, Sebastian, he is a former drug dealer. That tells us a ton of backstory about him without you having to describe any story or give us any references. So I have another question. This is a disability workshop, and you mentioned you have a disabled character. So we very much like to talk about that. So what is your disabled character's name?
Her name is Alicia.
Okay, excellent. All right. And what does Alicia do? Hobbies, job?
She's the daughter of the mafia that adopts Seb. It's a that's basically it.
Okay. So daughter of mafia, but daughter of mafia doesn't tell us anything about her.
She just basically, as soon as her dad dies, she take over her dad's job.
Okay, it still doesn't tell us anything about her. Like is she happy to be in the mafia? Is she trying?
She's happy. She's happy to do it.
All right, so she is a mafia boss. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right, what kind of skills does she have being a mafia boss?
She learns how to order people. She was trained to kill once. Well, actually, as a child, she was trained to kill along with Seb, but that's a different,
Yeah, we're not working on tangents. All right, so she's a mafia boss. What is her disability?
She's kind of traumatized and have this uncontrollable laughter and kind of like, how would I say it? She gets a little hallucinate. she's very she can get a little hallucination sometimes. What do you call it? Schizophrenic? Am I saying the word correctly?
That's the right word. I'm not sure that's the right condition though. Just because that's generally not caused by trauma. I will see if I can find a proper word for that disorder. But I know what you're talking about.
So one thing that I'd highly recommend is in media there is a lot of representation of mental illness and violence. That people commit violence, the evil cackling laughter kind of thing, and that is really, really bad and harmful to people with those actual conditions.
She said it herself that her laughter can be awakened if she's happy. Well, she's not happy, more like when she's nervous, crying, or excited. She can't control it. And I made her, on purpose as a metaphor before, the makeup, which I'm still stuck on. Like, why would she put herself a makeup and disguise herself as a wolf?
All right, so I'm going to stick with the disability representation because that is why that's what this whole workshop is about.
Okay. I said, you may seem like I am listening to you because I want to improve myself. Like I said, so I'm really appreciate you guys for your help.
Yeah, that's
really.
That's what we're here for.
No, really, I'm really thankful. I am honored to be in your presence of wise people.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
kind of.
I think what we're trying to make sure of is that we're representing people with disabilities well, because I'm sure you've seen the effects of bad representation in the media. It's important
I
that
can
we're not.
understand. I can understand 100% because as an autism person, I feel Well, I said the word slightly many times. I feel slightly offended.
Yeah, so you understand what it's like to be
Oh
on the
no.
receiving end of that. So it's
Yeah.
important that we're not making other people feel like that. And so I think it's important that we're not making disabled people the villains, because we've spoken about it in the workshop before, where there's a couple of horror movies about. You might have heard of Split, which is about someone with traumatic disorder, similar to PTSD in a way, and they are presented as a child abductor and abuser and stuff, which is just not represented. It's caused a lot of misinformation, and so we want to make sure that we're not doing that with other disorders.
It just kind of sounds like you don't know what her disability is exactly, but I would definitely look into that. I guess what struck me immediately was like psychosis, probably, when you're talking about hallucinations and trauma and all that stuff. I'm not. If you're gonna give her a disability, I'd imagine like you should probably know exactly what you're going for before you do much with her, I guess.
I do agree that nailing down exactly what her disability is important. So then you can research the disability to ensure that it is being portrayed correctly.
Also, hello, audience. I don't know shit about psychosis. Don't at me.
Sorry, my phone died. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, good.
Anyhow, I continue teaching me. I really want to improve my writing skills because like I said, I really want to write a story, but I don't want to, like, whenever I read a story, I don't want to be like, why are you telling me this story now? Why don't you tell it in the other story in the first place? That kind of situation, because this character has so much history. I even tease it. Hello?
Well,
Oh no. Oh no. Nobody hears me. Can everybody hear me? No?
Yeah,
We hear you.
We hear you. You don't have to ask
Oh,
every
okay.
time you stop talking.
It's just we don't respond right away in case we don't know if you're done talking. That's all.
Oh, okay. I'm worried because I don't want to be rude or offensive.
There is nothing rude or offensive about learning to write.
Okay.
So the number one thing I'd say is to nail down your characters. The backstory is important, but we're not going to see most of that backstory. Characters can be representative of real life. They can be representative of of an ideal, but in the story, in the world that they live in, that is not their identity. They are an individual character living in their world. So giving a reference to something else that doesn't really tell us anything about them, they are their unique self in their world. And so that is they need to be described. And that helps both ground the and help who they are.
I see.
I think we're going to move on and see if anyone else wants help with their projects. Thank you for bringing this to us. And if you need help at a later date, do feel free to come back to us. And we will try and help where we can. But just for the sake of, because we spent 40 minutes, on this project, I want to move on to someone else and see if anyone else has any projects that they would like help with. But yeah, thanks again, Nikki, Paul, and hopefully see you another time.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I just need someone to read my story and give their full analysis because I'm terrible at explaining.
That's fine. No worries. It's a skill that you'll have to work on. And it does take a lot of work to do.
Okay, sir.
Cool.
So where do I post my story link?
You can put it in the feedback channel.
Okay.
There you go. Alright. Yeah, let's move on and see if anyone else would like any help with any projects that they're writing, any projects containing disabled characters, or if you are disabled yourself, then you have free reign.
I'm disabled.
I'm a disabled person.
Thanks. I guess as of right now, I'm kind of having trouble doing writing right now. I'm trying to write some shorts, but my brain is just like, why though?
Okay, so is it you're lacking?
Huh?
Sorry, I was going to
No,
ask,
no,
is it
keep
that
going.
you're lacking, there seems to be a delay on my end, sorry. Is it that you're lacking motivation or lacking inspiration?
I feel lacking inspiration. I thought I liked my idea, but lately I'm just like, man, this is trash, and I am also trash. um, I guess like maybe I'm not writing what I want to write. I'm not really sure what I'm doing right now. And I feel like I can't focus on things. Like I'm just focus bad and hard.
Okay, so,
Uh,
was someone going to say something?
yes, if I may give my thoughts.
Go ahead.
This sounds like a classic case of some sort of avoidance because I've been in situations like this where I don't want to write. I don't want to write. What's the point, you know? Moments like that. I could be completely wrong, and you can tell me that I am completely wrong. But this is just my observation at a glance, and I am not going to play armchair therapist.
Okay, it might be. I wouldn't know at this point. I guess I have been avoiding it a little bit because it's just kind of like I don't know. I haven't been able to focus on much lately.
Um,
Mm.
I'm going to jump in and say what your brain is telling you is horseshit. What I, I don't know, like just the phrase "this is trash" and "I am trash." I was thinking that exact same thing, like all day yesterday and this morning, and it's been just constantly those kind of things, and it feels very real to ourselves, but those looking out and seeing us don't see that. Your thoughts are not reality. Um, I've read some of your work, so I know damn well you don't write trash.
Thank you. I don't know. Lately, it's just been feeling a bit different, and I feel like I don't know. I probably have to have someone read my writing before I'm just like all upset about it. But I've been a little too shy to actually show people these days.
So I I kind of just want to say you're not alone in your feelings. Uh, I think that is like part of the imposter syndrome and everything. Um, but yeah, your brain is lying to you. None of it's true, and I don't know. That's. I just want to say you're not alone. That feeling.
Thank you, Willow. I, I'm gonna, I'm gonna keep trying. I just, it's a weird experience at the moment. It's just a weird feeling, and I feel like it's just me thinking my skills are deteriorating if I had any at all. Like, I just feel like I'm getting worse, and I don't know why. But I, I'll show people. I'll show people, but I shouldn't live for their validation, and I know that. But it's just kind of like I can't tell when what I make is something good. Can't tell. Like I like making my stuff. Like I have like a love for making my ideas come true. But are my ideas good? I don't know. Like did I execute them correctly? I wouldn't know. So I gotta ask other people.
That's part of the
there's
writing process.
yeah, there's definitely value in having other people like your stuff, but that's not what's important. What if it's not good? What if it's absolutely terrible? The question is, did you have fun writing it and doing it? And is it something that you like? So it's okay if it's terrible. It's okay if it's bad. That's not what is important. And there's a very good chance that even what you consider to be bad actually isn't.
All right. Yeah. I will at the current moment just keep writing and see what happens. But Amanda had a question, and I just want to stew. I'm gonna stew on this. I'm gonna think.
I
So,
hear you. I
Mhm.
have similar feelings too. Like, how do I know if my idea is good or not? And then it's like you can't, unless you can execute it really well. A lot of times it's really hard to weigh that idea. That's what I'm finding kind of a similar thing. Like, is the idea good enough for me to keep pursuing it and keep getting, or do I want to like? It's hard. It's like when you read a script and it's not formatted right, you can't even start analyzing the script because you need it to be in a good format. And then similarly, if there's a really, really good concept, it's hard to evaluate the concept unless it's executed well. And so those are like two different skills. Coming up with a really cool concept and then actually like executing are different skills, and it's hard to. I agree. It's very confusing as to, and then what's a cool idea to one person is not to another. Like Connor
exactly.
does not have the same taste in shows as me. Like, I mean, we overlap a little bit, but like I really like the slice of life shows like Bob's Burgers, and so he just doesn't like it, that genre. And so getting feedback from him can be hard because you're often more generous if it's a genre you like, or it can be, and so yeah, I think you're hitting on something that's really universal.
Yeah, no, I feel you. That is exactly how I feel. And yeah, like a lot of people don't find interest in my concept or get very confused by them because, well, I'm inspired by other things that people don't know about.
All I keep
um,
thinking about is that
Mhm.
it's execution. An idea in a vacuum is worthless.
yeah, like I feel like maybe people would understand if I actually write it, which is my goal right now, to actually write it and see if it's understandable. But like I have trouble with focusing on the right things, which is why my log lines are always a mess. um and it's just a little difficult when your brain's all messy.
It could
But
be out. We burn out.
yeah, it could be burnout. I
Hard,
don't
but
think I'm burnt
hard.
out exactly, but yeah, I'm gonna keep trying. But yeah, I mean that is exactly how I feel. Just like, how do I know if this idea is good in execution? And like I'm just confused about like the process at the moment. And yeah, not everyone's gonna be into it, and I get that. It's just that, like, how do I find people that are? And if they are, like, if they're interested, does that mean it's a good idea, or does this mean that that like it's just like a rare exception? Anyway, it's a whole thing. The whole thing. I don't know what's happening. It's okay. I don't know. But yeah, Amanda, you had a question?
Yeah, it was a little bit kind of in line with a kind of a half question, half, does anyone else have this happen? Um, so, um, It is, and it's kind of comes back to that. Is this actually a solid concept and it's my execution that's wrong, or am I like putting the wrong protagonist in this role? Like that's so the character. So my character of Marley Unplugged is loosely based off of me and some problems I had on the internet and my own kind of addiction and confusion about it. And one of the feedbacks I got from Connor was, he's like, does anyone actually think this way? Who would think this way? Like, you've got to be nuts to think this way. And I was like, well, if she's on the autism spectrum, like, you know, I mean, maybe someone would think that was nuts, I guess, right? Because if it's and it's just based off of my own, right? So I'm really not extrapolating to anybody else. Like, I'm not imagining it at all. I like to start there because then there's an internal consistency to the character. Now, I might change her to be more neurotypical if I can't create a strong enough relatable hook, potentially. And it was Connor. It was just Connor's input, so it's not everybody. You know, I haven't shared it with other people. But go ahead.
You should share it, because like I feel like there's always this trend when we are giving our work to other people. Usually it's people who are very how do you say, typical.
Yeah.
Very typical, and who don't understand the struggles of somebody who is disabled or something like that.
Neurodivergent.
Neurodivergent.
And I feel like that's a strength. I mean, I feel like they're like, and because at least my experience of being on the spectrum, I associate it with some level of introversion, and not like, you know, people that are out there networking and doing sales don't necessarily, it's not a typical personality type for autism. And so like it's not represented in the media as much because of the nature of because it's divergent, because it's different, because it's not integrated. And so, but it's like, I feel like having a unique character is really, people like uniqueness. People like to hear new things, but it's like, it's hard to create something super new if nobody relates with it at all, or just 5 people relate with it. That's not good. But there's so many there's so many people on the spectrum that I think it will be relatable. And there are probably a lot of people that don't even know they are, you know, like they're, and so, yeah, I agree. I maybe next week or an animation, I might just share it and get different feedback about it, because, yeah, I think maybe that's what I'll do. I've already thought about it, but yeah, thank you for that encouragement. I should just do that and get different input.
Yeah, I always find that like it's really hard to get other people to understand things about disabilities. You have to start like with such simple ideas, I guess, and build it up as time goes on, instead of just like immediately hitting them with like, this is their life, this is how they act. You have to introduce simple ideas so that they get a feel for it and can latch on to it, and then like, grab that string and have it turn into a rope from there.
Yeah.
So it's just a sort of like you have to feed it to them in increments. You have to feed it to them little by little so that they get it in their brain and it sticks in there, basically.
Yeah. And actually one of the traits that I was surprised wasn't relatable was just being, the character is also very impressionable and kind of naive. And I think it's yeah. And so I think people that are not naive don't get it, but that doesn't mean no one.
I find it relatable. naivete. You know, I'm fucking naive as hell. I'm very impressionable. I was a child. I am now. So it's a trait that people have. You know, like I feel like some people can't see outside of their own experiences on occasion, which isn't a bad thing or anything. But it's kind of like if it's not you, then you think it's not anyone.
Right. Yeah. I think, I'm gonna, so maybe animation or disability group next week, maybe I'll share. So that gives me a little bit of, I've been also kind of not writing as much. I've been drawing a lot, but I haven't been writing as much. So if I know I'm going to share, I'll clean it up even more. And thanks everyone. That feels good to talk about that. So
yeah, that's good. And it's always good to discuss your own experiences through your characters. It's quite cool to I don't want to say give them your suffering, but you know what I mean. Yeah. But thank you, and I'm glad we were able to help. I was going to say something, and then I completely forgot what I was going to say. Nikki Paul, you need to give your poster title. And possibly also tags. I can't remember if you need to give tags or not. But yeah.
I think they turn blue.
Hopefully that works for you.
Doesn't look like you put any tags.
Well, no, I think before the workshop you had some topic you wanted to discuss. And I said that when you are ready to talk about it, I will hand the workshop over to you. Now is your moment.
Thank you, Joel. Well, I wanted to make sure, is there anyone else who wanted to share the work or get feedback who hasn't had a chance to before I commandeer the workshop?
question, how long does this workshop go to again? Is it 8 to 10-ish? 8 to 11
yes,
sometimes?
it's 2 hours.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes
I was thinking it was
overrun,
ending right now, so I'm like, okay. Oh, okay, got it.
We won't let you forget to start fantasy group. We've been starving.
Oh yeah, well that too. Well, no, I mean that too, but also I was like, well, maybe there is time for me to share my first couple pages. I'll let someone else go, and then if there's time, but yeah, someone else go, and then I might come in with. It's like literally a page and a half, I think, maybe 2 pages. So.
Okay, that sounds good.
I have a question.
So just because we want to prioritize people who haven't spoken, that we're going to go to Willow. Was there a question about your project or about the workshop? Sorry.
Oh, no, none of the above. None of the above. It was a discussion of representation in media of a particular movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So has or is there anyone who has not seen, I want to discuss the movie Kubo and the Two Strings. Is there anyone who has not seen it? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I would like to discuss it anyway.
I always...
Hell, it's good enough to watch.
I seen the trailer and some glimpses of it, and I felt kind of okay with it at first glance, but I'd like to see your perspective on it because I don't really know.
So I am going to spoil it in the discussion, and I have to say this is a really, really good movie, and I recommend go and watch it. It does have some problematic disability representation. But it's a really good movie. Great characters, great, awesome, great animation. I do believe it is all stop motion, but it looks really good.
It is.
It was made, I believe, by Leica Entertainment. So I am going to spoil it. So if you don't want to, I'm sorry, you can leave. All right. So Kubo, the first time we see him is as a baby, and we can see that he is missing an eye. So he only has one eye, which is honestly really good. We pretty much a disabled character who is both the main character and it's an action thing, and that is really cool. You even get his mother, and I think she has a scar as well. So the story starts with the mother running away with the baby. They crash on, she's in a boat. They crash on a shore, and they are fleeing from someone. We don't know in the beginning. And they go into hiding. And he grows up hiding in a cave because his grandfather is looking for him. And his grandfather wants to take his other eye. So it already starts out really kind of dark and cool and creepy, right? And it's not until midway, maybe, when we meet the grandfather. So we meet the grandfather, and the grandfather is the moon spirit. I don't know if he is the moon, but he lives on the moon. Yeah, I agree, Pollock. Number of times I've tried the emojis. It's like, no, those belong on WordCamp. We need the emojis brought over. Anyway. And when we meet the grandfather, that's when we learn the truth. And the grandfather is blind. And he wants to take Kubo's eyes, his other eye, so that he will be blind as well. And he will be blind to the to humanity, basically. So this is kind of I see, now I've forgotten the word. It is both disability as a representation of morality, that if you are blind, you can't see the pains of humanity. You can't see the joys of humanity, and you become cold and cruel because of it. And that is not even remotely true. It's disability as a metaphor. Blindness in particularly tends to get used a lot as turning a blind eye, the being blind to a situation. And disabilities are not metaphors. They are just an issue that a person has to deal with in their day-to-day lives. And so that is where the story does fall short. It is a really good movie. It is I can't recommend this movie enough. Let's see. I think I got a picture of the grandfather. And he does have the like stereotypical milky eyes to show that he is blind.
My blonde rep always goes weird. Not fair.
Yeah. So I think I won't spoil the end of what happens to him because it's really, really good. And it has a unique ending that definitely never saw coming. But it is something that I wanted to discuss. He is a moon spirit, or he is the spirit of the moon. And he has 3 daughters. One of his daughters is fell in love with the human, and that is how they had, and that's where Kubo came from. So she went to kill this human, and she saw the beauty of humanity. But since he is blind, since the grandfather's blind, he can never see that. And so that is why he wants to take Kubo's eye to make him blind. So yeah, so you've probably seen this a fair bit in movies. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can, where a disability is a it is a shorthand for something else. A wheelchair means fragility, kind of thing. See this especially in older movies. Let's see, what does Amanda say? I can see how that would be confusing when someone that is blind in a movie is a metaphor to the writer's story. It's not a metaphor in real life. Is that what you mean? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. So it does use the metaphor, and you do see the metaphor in the movie, but the reality is disabilities are not metaphors.
This reminds me of that example you gave about the fairy that couldn't fly. Was sort of a was kind of like showing representation of someone that isn't mobile, and it's like a fairy that doesn't have wings, but then she got the wings in the end because of some inner struggle she went through, that she earned the wing, or somehow it all. And it's like, that goes back to this metaphor thing where it's like, oh, it was an emotional journey that they were representing as lacking. Like I've thought of that in my own life, like, oh, I wish I had wings to fly, metaphorically, right? Like I feel like I can't, take off in my art career because I need this special ingredient of confidence, and it's metaphorical, and I represent it by wings. And then in the story, I overcome these challenges and now I have wings. And it's like meant to be a metaphor, and then the writer thinks they're actually showing representation, but they're really not. It's like that's a totally different thing. Showing a physical disability as a metaphor for an emotional one is not representation of someone with a disability. It sounds like that's kind of I don't know, is that, and I don't know, because my disabilities are more emotional and sort of intangible, so it's harder for me to relate with that. But is that kind of what you're talking about? Just
you hit on a very, very important part. That's not quite the metaphorical going for, but you did hit on something that is very true and absolutely accurate. The movie that you referenced is Barbie Fairytopia. And that actually starts out really well, because in a fantasy world, it makes sense to have a fantasy disability. And so a fairy born without wings, that is a congenital disability. And that works perfectly for in-world. But then, as you said, in the end, because she went through she showed her bravery. She basically earned her wings for some emotional, or it was a reward for her completing the journey, whatever.
Right.
then it just erases everything
Right.
before. And so the two, what I'm describing and what you're describing, they like hold hand in hand. The idea of either a disability being earned because of a moral failing,
Right.
or a disability being cured because of a moral whatever.
Right.
The truth is, absolutely none of it is related to morality in any way.
Right. And I love how the other thing I've quoted you on this about how you're like, well, if that story really was going to be sharing like a happy ending for somebody with that condition, it would show that the other fairies built in, systems that accommodated the wingless fairy. That would be, that's the happy ending that would really help with, yeah. And that's why we need more writers. That's why we need the writers, more writers, diverse writers to actually accurately depict it.
Which is the whole reason we're here today.
Yeah. I guess what I'm taking from this sort of like using disabilities as negative metaphors, just like you're blind to the truth kind of thing. It's sort of like people use disabilities to show what this character is lacking, and they like to see disabilities as lacking in their metaphors and all this stuff. Because it's something that is missing from you, apparently. And instead of learning to, I don't know what happens in Kubo. I don't know if Kubo's just like, yeah, I'm chilling, with like having one eye, or if his grandpa learns that, hey, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I have to be blind to the truth, kind of deal. Because like that's just not how blindness works, and I understand that it's a metaphor, but it's kind of like a dumb one. But I guess what I'm taking away is just that people believing that having a disability means that you lack some sort of moral aspect of your life, or some sort of like important aspect of your life. And it's like I'm a little slow, not because of my blindness though. And I just don't appreciate the use of disabilities as like metaphors in this way, I guess, because it's just, this is a real thing that people are going through, and presenting it in this way is sort of just like a bit hurtful, a bit rude.
Exactly.
I guess. Yeah.
100% agree with you. And it is so painful because this movie is so good. This movie is like near perfection, except for that part. And honestly, I didn't even realize it's plainly obvious that it's doing that. It states it outright. But I didn't realize how bad it was until I started like thinking in depth. I'm still going to recommend go see the movie. I really wanted to talk about the ending, but I'm not going to, because I think everyone should go and watch this movie. But do know that this is also a negative representation. For Kubo, you mentioned how he perceives his eye, and he never really says one way or the other. It's just part of his daily life. It doesn't make a huge difference to him. It's kind of more about keeping or whether or not he's going to lose his one eye.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's like, I was born this way. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah, that's
It's
basically
sort of, you just kind of live with it. And like, if someone were to threaten to take my other, I'd be like, no, don't do that. You can take this one instead.
yeah. So like it feels really dark, and they want to they want to rip out the eyes of a baby. Oh, that but honestly, it's kind of a sweet story. But even in good movies, there can be bad representation. All right, so that's just all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me say my piece, and I would love to hear other people's opinions on this. But I will turn it back over to Joel.
Thank you, Renee. If anyone else ever has any, sorry, my mic doesn't seem to want to work all the time. If there's anyone else who ever has any, disability topics in the, I was going to say the real world media, in the media that's already been produced, that's what I'm trying to say, and feel free to bring it up, because that's one of the purposes of the workshop. And I never find anything, so I never talk about anything. I spoke about Sweet Tooth last week. I finished it. And though it's not directly linked to disability, it is, so the hybrids are part human, part animals. And it's used
I have
as
something.
a...
Sorry.
Ooh.
Wait.
You made me jump. It's used as a metaphor. I'll come to you in a second, Lizana. But it's used as a metaphor, sort of. I have one mega delay here. What is going on? Sorry. I just should have thought. Yeah. So it's used as a analogy for what it's like to have a disabled child, because there's a couple elements in Sweet Tooth where one of the characters, called Big Man, he doesn't know what to do with this hybrid child. It's sort of like, sometimes when a parent has a disabled child, they're like, oh, what am I meant to do? Because, and when I said this last week, you know, when you're pregnant, everyone always says, oh, I hope your baby is healthy. And so that sort of builds up the expectation that your baby will be healthy, because everyone wants a baby to be healthy, so why wouldn't the baby be healthy? And then when it isn't, it's like, oh. Yeah, and so I think that was quite well shown in the, in Sweet Tooth. Has anyone else seen Sweet Tooth? And if so, what did you think of it?
I've
I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far. So it seems good so far. I've been trying to figure out what's going on. I'm still in that, figuring out the world place so far.
Yeah. It's definitely, sorry, go, Lizana.
I've seen the first season. I guess when I guess this could, like, I hope your child's born healthy, and when it's not, it's like, I'm so sorry, and it's like, I don't know, my child's fine. But yeah, I can see what you mean by disability, but I guess, like, I have more things to say, but they dip into something else, and I don't know if I should discuss that here, because it's partially related to disability, but it's also related to something else.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, mine wasn't directly linked to disability.
Okay, so usually when I see things with mutants in it, like Sweet Tooth or X-Men or something, they're like, it's about racism. But, like, I'm sitting here now and I'm just like, it could really be about anything, but it's also like, this isn't good representation in the first place. Because it's depicting these people as superhuman and like super powerful, and it's like there's no difference between people, right? Well, with disability, it would be portraying them as like some sort of scary monster type of person, and then that's not how they are either, though. So it's like what is the point of that sort of depiction in media? I know it's cool to have superhumans and stuff, and I know it's cool to have like fantasy racism, but I'd rather people don't link it to real world stuff at this point because it doesn't actually match. I don't know if that's like a good discussion topic, but I remembered it, and that's why I yelled in the middle of your words.
You brought up a topic that I want to discuss, and I was talking about this with one of my family members. Lasagna, as a person of colour who is disabled, so I don't know if everyone else's skin colours, but because I know that you're a person of colour, do you experience racism?
I somewhat. I can't really tell. Like, are they viewing this because I'm disabled or because I'm black? I don't know.
Exactly. And this is what I found as well. It's I don't know why I suddenly started talking about this, but as a person of colour who is disabled, I find this too. It's like, am I being discriminated against because I'm disabled or because I'm a person of colour? And, you know, a lot of my family are black. And they're always talking about racism and stuff. And I'm like, I can't connect with that because I, to the best of my knowledge, have never experienced it.
Exactly. Like, I don't know if I've experienced it before. I know definitely some random adult was really mean to me as a child. And I was just trying to hang out with his daughter because we were friends, but he seemed to really hate me. And I'm just sitting here like,
Lovely.
man, what did I do? And like as I got older, I was like, that was probably racism. But then I'm like, does he also hate me because I'm disabled? I can't tell.
Yeah. Welcome, Aganima. I probably said that wrong. Nice to have you here.
Oh, hello. No, you pronounce it right.
Oh, cool. Are you working on any projects with disability in it, or are you a disabled person yourself?
No, I'm interested in the topic. I'm working more in a project that involves maybe like a mental condition. I don't know if that would enter in the disability group.
Yeah, it does, absolutely, yeah.
So I'm interested. I'm here just to listen.
Okay, if you want to ask any questions or get any help with your project, then feel free to ask at any point, because that's why we're here.
Okay.
Amanda, it's been wonderful to have you. See you next week, hopefully.
Thank you. Yeah, I missed all you guys. I haven't been on the server as much lately, so I gotta be back. Yeah, it was a good reminder that I missed this. So I'll hopefully see you guys next week or in animation or one of the other ones. So,
Cool,
or
thanks,
maybe even
Amanda.
fantasy at 10. So, all right, talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, starts in half hour.
Okay, Pollock. I mean, you can still do that. I guess it'll be hard for people to not link it to real world racism because it's still racism. It's just, fantasy. Anyway, I shouldn't talk about racism in the disability workshop. Sorry.
See,
I think the two do overlap to some degree, but not a lot.
I mean, they are completely separate, absolutely. But I kind of feel like this is like the best place to have that discussion. I mean, this is already a place where we discuss sensitive topics and such. And it is all about representation as well. And so I kind of wanted to, I don't know, say something to Shadow. And like fantasy, like something Lasagna said, fantasy racism is it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's great to I don't know, like it's a lot of fun. Like I know that's a horrible way to put it,
Nah, it's fun. Let's not ship
It-
it.
So, it's like the worst world racism is not fun, not bit, but it does create inherent conflict and it does create real world. However, I don't think the problem is having that in your story, but I think it is important to recognize that fantasy racism between species is not the same as, does not correlate with human racism, because for humans, people of other races are not stronger. They are not like with the mutant thing. Normal people have a good reason to be afraid of afraid of mutants. They are powerful. They can do incredible things, and normal humans are completely defenseless against that. Versus real world racism. Let's take the stereotyped, the terrifying black man. A black man is no stronger than a white man. Right? And honestly, it varies of every degree from can't open the jelly jar to being a bodybuilder. Like that, there is no difference, but it is in people's mind. There's a difference. So I think that's an important distinction as to fantasy racism and real racism.
Right. I was watching this YouTuber review the Zombies trilogy, the Zombies movie from Disney. That weird one where it's like, oh, we are zombies, but we're just pale with green hair kind of thing. It's just like they have like a good reason to be scared of them because they used to literally eat people. But now it's just like, look, we're just like you. It's been 50 years and all this stuff. But they still have to have these bans on them that bar them from going fucking berserk. So it's like, yeah, kind of spooky. Kind of spooky. And like, that's just not how people work. They're not scared of us because we are superhuman. They're scared of us because our skin's different and our culture's different, all that stuff. Or not exactly scared, they just don't like us. And so like I'm kind of interested now in seeing this but played with disability, how people see that as more weaker rather than stronger. So I kind of want to see a different species that is a little, maybe different in that way of being not stronger, not neutral, just weaker. And see how they handle that and see how other people react to them. And maybe that'll be a more direct comparison than what we're getting now with racism, but maybe we should try it with disability. Fantasy discrimination. Fantasy disability discrimination. I want to see it. I don't know why, but I kind of want to see it. And I don't know how you would be able to depict that very respectfully. I feel like I have an idea, and now I kind of want to do it. Low key, high key. But I don't know. What do you guys think about doing that sort of thing?
Fantasy racism?
No, fantasy like how do you say like discrimination against disability but in a cooler word?
Ableism.
Oh right, I forgot that existed. Okay, fantasy ableism. God, words are hard. Yeah, I want to see fantasy ableism. Never seen that before. Oh, aside
Something
from
new.
Barbie Fairytopia, in which they, gave her wings in the end, so that was moot. Of a moot point. But yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Just fantasy, disabilities, and all that stuff. And it's just like, you're not that different from me, but you're different enough that I think you're weak and dumb.
So,
mhm.
Sorry, Lasagna. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I have nothing now. I'm done.
I just wanted to mention something in the Fairytopia movie that I have heard praised. All right, so the main character is a fairy born without wings, and so she lives in a grassy plains with flowers and such, so she's able to walk everywhere. That's fine. But she travels to another place where everything is up in the air and flying, and you need wings to get around in this area because it's like high in the trees. And she goes to this one place, and it's basically a guy sitting at a desk way high up in the air. And a person wheelchair mentioned how relatable it was going to like a government building or whatever and can't even see up above the counter because the counter is so high. So like little things like that can make your world all the more relatable, even though it's a completely fictional place.
Yeah, it can really make the world feel a little alive when you see little details that are like, oh yeah, everyone flies here, and now that you're in it, that's kind of weird. It's just like this isn't built. This like how real life isn't exactly built for people who are disabled. You know, we only have so much. We only have so much, and usually sometimes it's rarely even there. But and then like have that be portrayed in like a fantasy sense with Barbie not being able to like. I feel like her name was different in the movie, but Barbie not being able to see over the counter because like they didn't make it for her because they didn't know they didn't acknowledge that she existed. Which I'm sure there's more fairies without wings out there in the world, you know. Anyway, I think it's an interesting topic, and I guess I'd like to see more fantasy ableism because I feel like the comparisons can be a little more apt rather than with fantasy racism, in which it's like you're superhuman and we're scared of you, but also we shouldn't be. And it's just like, no, they could probably tear you apart, but yeah, they seem like nice people. And then being like, yeah, it's like the average black man. But with fantasy ableism, I feel like you could portray issues in a more fantastical way, and like, but in a way that's like, you know, actually comparable for once. In that setting. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying, or am I getting confusing?
I think I get it.
Thank
Racism
you.
or like fear of the disability is a lot harder to swallow of an idea for something like when you're racist when you're hateful against somebody who's got actual powers that can kill you without much thought.
Yeah, like it's not like a one-to-one to racism. While a fantasy ableism can at least be a little more comparable, despite it being like a fantasy disability. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like despite having the same idea, they both end up being very different in like what they can actually show and represent. Oh, I think it's pretty cool. Oh yeah, Shadow is right. Pollock is right. It's weird that they keep putting something inherently dangerous in a superhuman context, yet still make it about normal racism. Exactly. It's just how it be.
I think if both sides were super powerful, it would be a lot more impactful or potentially super powerful.
Definitely. Like if they were of the same
Disabled characters, but my War of the Elves story is literally about literal racism. And people can do magic and stuff, but both sides can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember yours. It's just that the other one's blue. And that's like wherever the conflict comes from. Other one's blue. Um uh, but yeah, I don't know. Joel, talk now. I talk now.
Hello.
Hello. I I just I don't know. Did what I said make sense? So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, given how much everyone was, responding and engaged in that conversation, I don't think you said anything bad. um,
Okay. Sorry. I sometimes I get scared.
oh boy, I know the feeling. I am currently, because it feels like we're going to come to an end soon. If anyone does have any, brain you can engage, anything you would like to talk about, now's your opportunity. Otherwise, I think we'll, finish up shortly. I'm finding a nice picture for this week's prompt. Excuse me, I'm gonna complain about this. You ready? None of you wonderful people did the prompt this fortnight. I think this will be a regular thing. So we have one running on Script Camp, which the due date is this time next week ish. Let me check the actual due date. You can find it in the excuse me. You can find it in the disability feedback channel in Script Camp, and there'll be one posted shortly in WordCamp. Remember, the winner, as chosen by Willow and or me, will get yes, you failed. You will get 5 coins. Excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice for some reason. And everyone else gets 2 coins, so you get money, you get paid. You get paid, guys. So yeah. The deadline for the Script Camp one is 19th of May, 11 p.m. British time, which is, I have no idea what time that is for other people. 6 p.m. Eastern, and yeah, 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific. It's a weird time because that's the best time that works for me. So yeah. I mean, me and or Willow will review them and give out coins. We have some very loud motorbikes driving past. Yeah, so we will post a image shortly in WordCamp in the disability feedback channel. Also, please do make use of the feedback channels, if you want. Sensitivity readings. It is a volunteer service, so don't post like a 90-page script and expect it to get reviewed the next day. But yeah, if you have any comments, use either disability chat or disability feedback channel. You should, hypothetically, all have access to it. Maybe. If not, ping me and I can resolve that quite quickly. I'm going to make sure all of the members have it. But yeah, if there's anything else, now is your opportunity.
Oh, Pollock is typing something. But I'm good.
You're awesome.
I said, oh,
Get rid of.
thank you, Dad.
If you want, we could try and get rid of it together, whatever that means.
Get rid of it. Whatever that means.
Alright, yeah, I can
Bye
email.
again.
I think we're finished now anyway. Thank you all very, very much for coming, and we will see you next week in Script Camp. Make sure you have the link to the Script Camp before you leave, and we will be on there. I'm going to try and grab the link quickly. I'm never prepared to do this. Oh, you're already a member. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
already a member.
Yeah, nice. Alright. Thank you guys all for coming, and see you next week. And do your writing prompts. You'll get coins.
Okay.
Bye, guys.